This is Mark Segel, Director of the Tampa Jewish Community Relations Council, and I have the privilege today to have a conversation with Dr. Tawfik Hamid. Welcome, Dr. Hamid.
Hi, Mark.
Dr. Hamid is an Islamic thinker and reformer and was once a member of the terrorist Islamic organization Jamaat Islamiyah. He's since renounced terrorism and has recognized the threat of radical Islam and the need for reformation. Currently, Dr. Hamid is a senior fellow and chair for the Study of Islamic Radicalism at the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Pleasure to be with you.
Over the past 25 years, you've gone through an incredible transformation from being an active member of a radical Islamic terrorist organization to a pursuer of peace and opponent of radical Islam. When did you first begin to question your involvement in the terrorist organization?
This happened actually 25 years ago. It was not something recent or after September 11. It was far before September the 11th. And I recognized their teaching that's so evil when they asked me to practice what they preach. So at some stage, I was indoctrinated theoretically. I believed in this, but all was theoretical. I dreamed about going to Afghanistan, doing jihadi activities against non-Muslims and even Muslims who do not agree with my views. But when they asked me to share with them in kidnapping a police officer in Egypt and dig a grave for him and bury the man alive, this was completely against my human conscience.
How did your friends and family respond to your decision to fight against radical Islam, and what are those relationships like today?
My family and friends actually welcomed this because many of them were not radical originally, but the people in the Jamaat Islamiyah itself turned against me to some extent initially. Then things went worse. Initially, they started to invite me back again to the Jamaat Islamiyah. I went into arguments with them and discussion, theological debates. I started to talk into mosques. When I started to grow and my voice get a bit louder, it was not huge, but it was relatively louder. I was threatened to be killed, and they started to threaten my life. And for this reason and other reasons, I just left the whole area or the Middle East.
Today, we regularly hear the terms radical Islam and moderate Islam, yet most find it very difficult to define the difference between the two. Would you please share with us, as you've described it, the ABCs of radical Islam?
My view was that to put it in a simple test, A, B, C, D, F, G. A, for apostate killing. B, barbaric treatment of women, such as beating women and stoning women to death. C, calling Jews pigs and monkeys. D, declaring wars against non-Muslims to spread the religion. E, enslavement of human beings. F, fighting Jews before end days and killing all of them, which is a common belief in mainstream Islam, unfortunately. And G, gay killing. So I put it in alphabet style so that people can remember them. And if some group claim they are moderate, it's easy to test them. If you are truly moderate, go and put renouncement or denouncement for all these ABCs on your websites. Speak on the media against them. So when you see a case of a stoning women happening in Iran or some other Islamic country, you stand against this. One day I was speaking in Dearborn, Michigan, in front of mixed group. Many of them were Jewish. And while I was speaking this ABC, some imam interrupted, a Muslim imam from Senegal, interrupted my speech and said to me, Dr. Hamid, why do you mention this radical sort of teaching? I'm a moderate imam, I am peaceful. I said to him, look, imam, instead of telling me how moderate you are, would you mind to prove to me and to the audience that you are moderate? And the imam waited for me to understand how can he prove it. And then I asked him, would you mind, imam, to invite me and some of our Jewish friends and brothers and sisters who are sitting with us tonight to your mosque next Friday prayer? And instead of telling us how moderate you are, just stand in front of your congregation and say it clearly, loudly, and unambiguously that Jews are not pigs and monkeys. Would you do this, imam? He didn't say a word, he didn't utter a letter. So it's so easy for people to claim that they are moderates, but prove it. by standing against these violent edicts or providing other alternative explanation and saying this is absolutely unacceptable in our modern times.
What, in your opinion, are the keys to winning the global war on terror?
You need to work at the security level, sure, to stop the terrorist act. But this is not enough by itself. You need to work at the jihadist level by doing a proper psychological warfare operations. And number three, you need to work at the level of normal individuals to prevent them from becoming
What
jihadists.
can the Jewish American community do to best help win the war, if anything?
So number one, they need to insist, if you want to be considered moderate, if you want to truly be engaged in interfaith dialogue, you denounce it in your media outlet, you clearly put it in your website or stand against it. It's number one. Number two, the Jewish community need to encourage the criticism of the radical elements in the current Sharia law. In this situation, we need your help by criticizing radical elements, not let political correctness control you and stop you from criticizing these radical elements.
Last question I have for you today. As you're well aware, the Jewish community obviously has great interest in the negotiations between the Palestinian and the Israeli governments.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the peace process and the possibility of achieving peace in the Middle East?
The peace process is hampered significantly because you deal with an opponent that, number one, does not accept the existence of the state of Israel. You cannot deal with a partner that does not accept your existence to begin with. This is number one. Number two, you deal with a partner that's delusional in nature. So they create lies and they believe in them. Like recently, they claim that the Wailing Wall has nothing to do with the Jews. So trying to be against historical facts shows that you deal with a delusional enemy. Number three, the Israel, when they try to do peace with the Palestinians, they occasionally used force. My suggestion is when you use force, use it properly. Use what I call the suppressive threshold of antibiotics. If you give half dose antibiotics, it doesn't work. You need to give full dose, otherwise it doesn't work. So what happened when Israel was using moderate level of power? It didn't work for years, and they were really attacked by several terrorist acts, hundreds. When you see after Gaza, when Israel went hard on them, now you don't see much, and they created the barrier. You don't see many terror acts. So I want the Israelis to be more tough when they react, and also to insist on that the other side do concessions when the Israelis do concessions. It's illogical that you leave land and you get nothing at the end. You give land thinking that it will bring peace, but the reality is showing that it doesn't. You already left a lot of land for the Arabs, and you haven't got the real peace that you deserve. So I believe you have to insist in your negotiations that you want any concession from my side. Then you have first to change your education system, change your media to stop the hatred that's continuously happening against the Jewish people in the Arab media and the Islamic media in general.
Well, Dr. Hamid, thank you once again for being with us today and sharing your fascinating story and insight. Your efforts and personal sacrifices to help make the world a safer place are sincerely appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is Mark Segel of the Tampa JCRC, and this has been a production of Let My People Grow, an outreach and engagement initiative. Thank you for watching.